My grandson called me late at night. "Grandma, I'm at the police station. My stepmom hit me, but she's saying I attacked her." My dad doesn't believe me. When I arrived at the station, the officer turned pale and muttered, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." It was 2:47 a.m. when my phone shattered the silence of my apartment. At that hour, a call never brings good news. I reached out in the darkness, fumbling on the nightstand until I found my cell. The screen lit up my face with that cold glow that jolts you back to reality. It was Mason, my grandson, the only one who still called me Grandma without anyone forcing him to. "Mason, honey, what's wrong?" My voice was hoarse with sleep, but my heart was already pounding as if it knew something was terribly wrong. What I heard on the other end chilled my blood. "Grandma," his voice trembled, broken by sobs. "I'm at the precinct, the one in Logan Square. Vanessa." She hit me with a candlestick. My eyebrow is bleeding. But she's saying I attacked her, that I pushed her down the stairs. My dad believes her, Grandma. He doesn't believe me." I felt the air leave my lungs. I sat up on the edge of the bed, my bare feet on the cold hardwood floor. Mason's words ricocheted in my head like stray bullets. Vanessa, my son's wife, the woman who in 5 years had achieved what I thought impossible, turning Adam into a stranger. "Stay calm, my boy. Which precinct are you in?" "The one in Logan Square." "Grandma, I'm scared. There's an officer who says if a responsible adult doesn't come, they're going to transfer me to—" "Don't say another word," I interrupted, already standing up, searching for my clothes with trembling hands. "I'm on my way. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Grandma." He hung up, and I stood there in the middle of my bedroom, holding the phone as if it were the only real thing in that moment. My reflection in the closet mirror stared back at me. A 6'8" woman with messy gray hair and deep dark circles under her eyes. But I didn't see a frightened old woman. I saw Captain Rebecca Stone, the same woman who for 35 years had worked for the Chicago Police Department, the same one who had interrogated criminals, solved impossible cases, and faced situations that would make anyone tremble. And for the first time in 8 years since my retirement, I felt that woman waking up again. I dressed in less than 5 minutes. Black pants, a gray sweater, my comfortable boots. I grabbed my purse, and almost by instinct, I opened my dresser drawer. There it was, my expired captain's badge. I tucked it into the back pocket of my pants. I didn't know if it would do me any good, but something told me I was going to need it that night. When I got out on the street, the city was enveloped in that thick silence that only exists in the dead of night. I hailed a cab on the main avenue. The driver, a man in his 52nds, looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Where to, ma'am?" "The Logan Square precinct, and please hurry, it's an emergency." He nodded and sped up. I stared out the window without really seeing anything. I only thought of Mason, of his broken voice, of the words he had said to me. My dad doesn't believe me. Adam, my son, the boy I had raised alone after his father left us when he was just 3 years old. The man I gave everything to: education, values, unconditional love. The same one who 5 years ago had stopped visiting, who had stopped calling, who had erased me from his life as if I had never existed. And all for her, for Vanessa. He met her at a casino where she worked as a dealer. He had just been widowed, shattered by the death of his first wife, Mason's mother. Vanessa appeared like a rescuing angel, young, beautiful, attentive, too perfect. I saw it from the beginning. I saw the way she looked at him, not with love, but with calculation, like someone evaluating an investment. But Adam was blind. He needed to fill the void that his wife's death had left. And Vanessa knew exactly how to fill it. Slowly, she began to plant doubts in his head. "Your mother is very controlling, honey. She never lets you make your own decisions. She's always judging you." At first, Adam defended me, but drops of poison, when they fall one after another, end up tainting even the purest water. The visits became less frequent, the calls shorter, birthdays were forgotten, Christmases filled with made-up excuses, until one day he simply stopped reaching out. The only one who kept coming was Mason. On the weekends he was supposed to stay with his father. He would find a way to sneak away for a few hours to visit me. He brought me drawings from school, told me his problems, and hugged me, as if in those arms he found the refuge he no longer had in his own home. And I, like the fool I was, thought that eventually things would get better, that Adam would come to his senses, that time would bring him back. How wrong I was. The taxi stopped in front of the precinct, a gray, two-story brick building with its lights on. I paid the driver and got out. My legs were shaking, but not from fear, from contained rage. I walked through the main door. The officer on duty, a young man of about 25, looked up from his desk. "Good evening. How can I help you?" "I'm here for Mason Rivers, my grandson. He called me half an hour ago." The officer checked a sheet in front of him. "Ah, yes, the domestic assault case. You're his grandmother?" "Rebecca Stone." Something in his face changed when he heard my name. He paled slightly. He looked at me more closely, as if trying to remember something. "Stone? Like Captain Stone?" I pulled my expired badge from my pocket and placed it on the desk. The officer took it, looked at it, and his expression changed completely. He stood up immediately. "My God, Captain. I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were the boy's family. Where is my grandson?" My voice came out firm, without hesitation. The voice I had used hundreds of times to interrogate, to command, to make people understand I wasn't playing games. "In the waiting room with his parents and, well, with the complainant, Captain Swanson is in charge of the case." Swanson? That name made me pause for a second. Carl Swanson had been one of my subordinates years ago. A good officer, fair, intelligent. "Take me to him." The officer nodded and led me down a hallway I knew like the back of my hand. I had walked these same floors hundreds of times during my career. Every corner, every door, every crack in the wall brought back memories of a life I thought I had left behind. But that night I understood something. You never stop being who you were. You just pretend you've forgotten. We reached the waiting room, and there, in that cold space lit by fluorescent lights, I saw the scene that would change everything. Mason was sitting in a plastic chair, his right eyebrow clumsily bandaged with gauze. His eyes were red from crying. When he saw me, he jumped up. "Grandma!" He ran to me and wrapped his arms around my waist like when he was a child. I felt his body tremble against mine. I stroked his hair and whispered, "I'm here now, my boy. I'm here." But my gaze had already found the other two characters in this scene. Adam was standing against the wall, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Shame, anger, guilt. And next to him, sitting with her legs crossed and a perfectly rehearsed victim expression, was Vanessa. She was wearing a burgundy satin robe, as if she had been pulled out of bed by force. She had a bruise on her left arm that looked freshly made. Her brown hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She looked at me with those big, teary eyes, as if to say, "Look what your grandson did to me." But I knew that look. I had seen it on dozens of criminals who tried to deceive me during my career. The look of someone who knows how to act, who knows how to manipulate. "Rebecca," Adam said in a dry voice, without moving from his spot, "you didn't have to come." Those 5 words hurt more than any physical blow. I didn't have time to respond because at that moment, an office door opened and a man in his 52nds came out, his uniform impeccable and his expression serious. Captain Carl Swanson. When he saw me, he stopped in his tracks. "Captain Stone." "Hello, Carl," I said calmly. "It's been a while." He approached, clearly surprised. "I had no idea you were involved in this case. If I had known—" "Now you know," I interrupted, "and I need you to explain exactly what's happening here. Because something tells me that what I heard on the phone was just the tip of the iceberg. And I was about to find out just how deep the abyss my family had fallen into had become." Carl Swanson led me to his office. Mason came with me, clinging to my hand as if he feared I would disappear. Adam and Vanessa stayed in the waiting room. I could feel my son's gaze fixed on my back, but I didn't turn around. I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. Swanson's office was small but tidy. A metal desk, 2 chairs in front of it, a file cabinet in the corner, and a small American flag on the wall. Not much had changed since my time. Even the smell of old coffee and paper was the same. "Please, have a seat," Swanson said, closing the door behind us. I sat in one of the chairs, and Mason settled beside me. He kept his head down, his hands clasped in his lap. Swanson sat on the other side of the desk and opened a folder. He sighed before speaking. "Captain, the situation is complicated." "Give me the facts," I said, getting straight to the point. Her version first. Swanson nodded and consulted his notes. Mrs. Vanessa Rivers filed the complaint at 11:43 p.m. She arrived with her husband, Mr. Adam Rivers, your son. She alleges that at approximately 10:30 p.m., the minor, Mason, returned home after his curfew. When she confronted him about it, he reacted violently, pushed her down the stairs and struck her on the arm. She has bruises that partially match her story. Every word was like a needle piercing my chest. I looked at Mason. He still had his head down, but I saw his hands trembling. "And my grandson's version?" I asked, though from Swanson's tone, I already knew no one had believed him. The minor alleges that Mrs. Rivers attacked him first. He says that when he got home, she was already angry, waiting for him in the living room, and without a word, she struck him with a blunt object. According to him, a silver candlestick. The wound on his eyebrow required 3 stitches. "Did you check the candlestick?" Swanson shook his head, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Rivers says no such object exists, that the boy made up the story to justify his aggression. And here's the problem, Captain. The security cameras in the house were broken tonight. Just tonight. I leaned back in my chair, processing the information. It wasn't a coincidence. None of this was. "How convenient," I muttered. According to the husband, the cameras have been broken for 3 days. They were going to call a technician this week. And the neighbor's cameras on the street. We're in the process of reviewing them, but the house is in a private residential area. There are no public cameras nearby. Of course not. Vanessa had planned this perfectly. Every detail, every move. This wasn't a fit of rage. It was premeditated. I turned to Mason. I placed my hand on his. "Look at me, honey." He slowly lifted his gaze. His eyes were full of fear and shame. "Tell me everything from the beginning, and don't hide anything." Mason swallowed hard, looked at Swanson, then back at me. "I was late because I was studying at a friend's house. I have a math exam on Monday. I got home at 10:15, not that late. But when I opened the door, Vanessa was there in the living room with the lights off. Only the kitchen light was on." His voice started to break, but he continued. "She said, 'You're late, you insolent brat.' I told her I had texted Dad. She laughed and showed me my dad's phone. She had it. Dad was asleep. Then she said, 'Your father doesn't care about you. No one cares about you. You're a burden in this house.' Tears started rolling down his cheeks. I just wanted to go to my room, Grandma. I swear. But she grabbed my arm and pulled me. I tried to break free. And then she took the candlestick from the table and hit me here." He pointed to his bandaged eyebrow. I felt everything spin. I fell to the floor, and while I was there bleeding, she gave herself the bruises, hitting herself against the wall. I saw her, Grandma. I saw her do it. "Your father? Where was he?" "Asleep in his room. She had given him some chamomile tea because he said he was stressed. When he heard the noise and came down, the scene was already set. Vanessa was crying, saying I had attacked her. My dad didn't even ask me what happened. He just yelled at me that I was a disgrace and called the police. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a deep breath. The rage I felt was like a fire contained in my chest. And the candlestick? She hid it before my dad came down. I don't know where she put it. I opened my eyes and looked directly at Swanson. "Carl, you knew my work for 20 years. Did you ever see me let an innocent person pay for something they didn't do?" "Never, Captain. My grandson is telling the truth, and I'm going to prove it." Swanson rubbed his face with both hands. "Rebecca, legally, my hands are tied. It's the word of a minor against 2 adults. The father supports the wife's version. I have no physical evidence that contradicts their story. The only thing I can do is release him into your temporary custody while we investigate, but I need you to sign as the responsible party. Do it. I'll take full responsibility." "Mason, honey, what's wrong?" My voice was hoarse with sleep, but my heart was already pounding as if it knew something was terribly wrong. What I heard on the other end chilled my blood. "Grandma," his voice trembled, broken by sobs. "I'm at the precinct, the one in Logan Square. Vanessa, she hit me with a candlestick. My eyebrow is bleeding. But she's saying I attacked her, that I pushed her down the stairs. My dad believes her, Grandma. He doesn't believe me. How long has this been going on, Mason? I asked in a low voice. He looked down again. What, Grandma? Don't ask me that question. You know what I'm referring to. There was a long silence. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Mason spoke, so quietly I could barely hear him. For about 6 months, it started with insults. Then she started breaking my things, my game console, my notebooks, a soccer trophy you gave me. She said they were accidents. My dad believed her. Then she started hitting me. Slaps, shoves. Once, she locked me in the basement all afternoon because I said I wanted to come see you. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I was afraid that if I told you, my dad would get angrier at you. I thought if I just held on a little longer, things would get better. But tonight was different. I saw something in her eyes, Grandma. I realized she wants me to disappear. Swanson finished the paperwork and passed it to me. I signed it without reading, trusting him. Then he stood up. I'm going to call your son to sign the minor's release as well. Wait here. He left the office. Mason and I were alone. I hugged him, this time with more force. I felt his body relax against mine, as if for the first time in hours he could breathe peacefully. Forgive me, my boy. Forgive me for not realizing sooner. It's not your fault, Grandma. It's Dad who didn't want to see. He was right, but that didn't make it hurt any less. The door opened. Adam came in alone. He didn't even look at me. He walked to the desk, took the pen Swanson offered him, and signed the papers with sharp, jerky movements, as if every second in there was agony. It's done, he said curtly. Can I go? Adam, I said, standing up, we need to talk. I have nothing to talk to you about, he replied without turning. You made your choice. You chose to believe him over my wife. My wife. And your son. What about him? When did your own son stop mattering to you? He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes chilled my blood. There was no love, no guilt, only nothing. A void I didn't recognize. My son attacked my wife. The proof is there. Vanessa has the bruises. He has a history of bad behavior at school. What history? Mason exploded. That's a lie. I've never had problems at school. You were suspended last week for fighting with a classmate. Stay calm, my boy. Which precinct are you in? The one in Logan Square. Grandma, I'm scared. There's an officer who says if a responsible adult doesn't come, they're going to transfer me to... Don't say another word, I interrupted, already standing up, searching for my clothes with trembling hands. I'm on my way. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. Do you understand me? Yes, Grandma. Swanson placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Rebecca. Don't be, I replied, wiping away a tear that had escaped without permission. He made his decision. Now I'm going to make mine. I took Mason by the hand. Let's go home. We left the precinct into the cold early morning. Vanessa and Adam were already gone. On the empty street, under the orange glow of the streetlights, I stopped for a moment. Mason looked at me. What are we going to do, Grandma? I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that looked so much like his mother's, kind, noble, incapable of lying. We're going to prove the truth, my boy. And we're going to make her pay for every tear she made you shed. Because Vanessa made one mistake that night, a mistake that would cost her everything. She messed with my grandson, and nobody, absolutely nobody, hurts my family without me doing something about it. Captain Rebecca Stone was back, and this time, no retirement was going to stop me. What secrets was Vanessa hiding? Why so much hatred for an innocent boy? The truth was darker than I ever imagined. We arrived at my condo just as the sun was beginning to peek between the buildings. Mason was silent beside me, dragging his feet from exhaustion and pain. I lived in a modest apartment in Lakeview, a third-floor walk-up I had bought with my life savings. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every plate, every memory on those walls belonged to me. I opened the door and turned on the lights. The familiar smell of coffee and cinnamon greeted me. I always left a few cinnamon sticks on the stove to make the house smell like home. Come on, sit on the couch, I told Mason. I'll make you something to eat." "I'm not hungry, Grandma." "I didn't ask if you were hungry, I said I'm making you something." He managed a weak smile and sank into the brown fabric sofa. It was old but comfortable. I had bought it at a second-hand market 15 years ago, and it was still holding up. I went to the kitchen and heated some milk. I made 2 cups of hot chocolate, just like my mother taught me when I was a child. I cut a slice of coffee cake I had bought the day before from the bakery 2 blocks away. I returned to the living room with everything on a tray. Mason took the mug in his hands and took a sip. He closed his eyes, savoring it. For a moment, he seemed to forget everything that had happened. "Thanks, Grandma." "Eat slowly." "Because that classmate was harassing a girl." I defended her. The principal congratulated me after talking to the witnesses. Adam didn't answer. He simply turned around and walked out of the office, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, feeling every piece of hope I had of getting my son back crumble away. I sat beside him and drank my hot chocolate in silence. Outside, the city was beginning to wake up. You could hear the first trucks, the whistle of the man selling newspapers on the corner, the bark of Cooper, the neighbor's dog on the second floor. "Grandma," Mason said after a while, "can I stay with you?" "Of course you can, for as long as you need." "I don't mean for a little while, I mean forever. I don't want to go back to that house, not with her there." I put my mug on the coffee table and looked at him. "Mason, legally, your father has custody. I can only have you temporarily until the case is resolved. If you want to stay with me permanently, we'll have to do things the right way, with lawyers, with judges. But Dad will never agree. We don't know that until we try." He shook his head. "He does everything Vanessa tells him to. Since they got married, it's like my dad is a different person." "Do you know what I overheard a week ago?" "What did you hear?" Mason lowered his voice as if someone might be listening. "They were in their room. I was going to the bathroom and passed their door. It was slightly open. Vanessa was on the phone with someone. She was saying, 'Don't worry, everything is going according to plan. When the old lady dies, Adam will inherit the condo. We sell it, and we'll get at least $500,000. With that and what I've already got saved, we're off to Miami. We'll open the hotel we always dreamed of, and we'll send the brat to a military academy in Virginia. Let someone else deal with him." I felt my blood boil. "Are you sure about what you heard?" "Completely sure, Grandma. That's why that night when I came home late and she attacked me, I knew it was part of her plan. She wants to keep me away from you. She wants you to see me as a problem. She wants my dad to see me that way too. And when I'm no longer in the way, all that's left is to wait for you." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Vanessa was planning for my death, or at least waiting for it to happen soon. And in the meantime, she was going to destroy any bond that existed between my son and me, between Mason and his father. "Did you tell your dad any of this?" I tried. The next day, when Vanessa went to the salon, I told him what I'd heard. You know what he said? That I was making things up because I couldn't accept that he had rebuilt his life. That I was a resentful teenager. That Vanessa had been very patient with me, and I was just trying to make her look bad. The helplessness I felt at that moment was crushing. My own son, the boy I had raised to be fair and honest, was completely blinded. He nodded and sped up. I stared out the window without really seeing anything. I only thought of Mason, of his broken voice, of the words he had said to me. "My dad doesn't believe me." Adam, my son, the boy I had raised alone after his father left us when he was just 3 years old, the man I gave everything to: education, values, unconditional love. The same one who 5 years ago had stopped visiting, who had stopped calling, who had erased me from his life as if I had never existed. He rested his head on my shoulder and sighed. "Why does she hate us so much, Grandma?" "Because the hatred of people like Vanessa doesn't come from the heart. It comes from ambition. To her, you and I are obstacles, things standing between her and what she wants. And what does she want? Money, power, an easy life without working for it." I sat there thinking in silence. I started connecting the dots. When Adam met Vanessa, she told him she came from a wealthy family in Boston, that she had studied at private schools, that she worked as a dealer in the casino because she liked the excitement, not out of necessity. But we never met her family. No relatives ever came to the wedding. When I asked Adam about it, he said Vanessa was estranged from her parents over personal issues. How convenient. "Mason, I need you to do me a favor. Anything, Grandma. Take out your phone. Show me the pictures of the bruises you said you had from before. He took his phone out of his pocket, unlocked the screen, and opened his gallery. He showed me a hidden folder in his files. There were at least 20 photos, bruises on his arms, his back, his legs, all recent, all dated. Why did you never show me this? Because I was afraid if I did anything, Dad would blame you. Vanessa always says you turn me against them. Send me all those photos, now. Mason obeyed. My phone began to vibrate as the images arrived. Each photo was a piece of evidence. Each mark was a silent cry for help that no one had heard until now. Now I need you to get some sleep, I said. Your eyebrow is swollen and you need to rest. Use my room, I'll stay here on the couch. But Grandma. No buts, go to sleep. He stood up, gave me a kiss on the forehead, and went to my room. I heard the door close softly. I was left alone in the living room with my phone in my hand, the screen filled with pictures of my battered grandson. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a drawer in the living room cabinet and took out an old leather-bound notebook. It was my investigation notebook, the same one I used when I was on the force. Inside were phone numbers, contacts, notes from old cases. I looked for a specific name, Letty Dawson. Letty had been my partner for 10 years at CPD. She was younger than me, but just as tough. When I retired, she stayed on for a couple more years before opening her own private investigation agency. We had seen each other a few times since then, but I knew that if anyone could help me, it was her. I dialed her number. It rang 4 times before she answered. Yeah? Her voice was hoarse and sleepy. Letty, it's Rebecca Stone. There was a silence, then a sigh. Captain, haven't heard from you in ages. What time is it? 6:30 inches the morning. Sorry to wake you, but I need your help. It's urgent. Tell me. I told her everything. From Mason's call to what he had overheard about Vanessa's plans, I told her about the photos, the bruises, the precinct, about Adam. When I finished, Letty let out a long whistle. This woman is a professional, Captain. What you're describing isn't a cruel stepmother, it's a con artist. And a damn good one. That's what I was thinking. I need you to run a background check on her. Full name, date of birth, everything you've got. Vanessa Rivers. I don't know her maiden name. She's 32, according to what Adam told me when he met her. They got married 5 years ago. That's enough to start. Give me 2 days. I'll check criminal records, prior marriages, financial history. If she's got skeletons in her closet, I'll find them. Thanks, Letty. Don't thank me yet. This is going to take work, and if we find something big, we're going to need more than good intentions to act on it. I know. But first, I need to know what we're dealing with. We hung up. I stared at my phone. Then I looked around my small living room, the old furniture, the photos on the walls, the cross above the doorway. This condo wasn't worth $500,000. It was worth much more. It was worth every drop of sweat I had poured into working double shifts to buy it. It was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of loneliness, and Vanessa thought she could just take it from me. She thought she could manipulate my son, torture my grandson, and wait for me to die like someone waiting for a check. We sat at the dining table. Letty opened the folder and began pulling out documents, photographs, and printouts. Vanessa Rivers, she began. But that's not her real name. She was born Vanessa Jenkins in Gary, Indiana. 34 years old, not 32 like she told your son. First lie confirmed. She never attended private schools. She finished high school at a public school, and there's no record of her ever setting foot in a university. The investigation was just beginning, and what I discovered about Vanessa would make me realize that my grandson and I were not her first victims. 2 days later, Letty showed up at my door at 9 a.m. She carried a thick folder under her arm and wore an expression I knew all too well, the look of someone who has just uncovered something rotten. Captain, you're going to want to sit down for this. I made coffee while Mason was in the shower. He had spent those 2 days with me, recovering. The swelling on his eyebrow had gone down, but the scar would remain forever. A permanent mark of Vanessa's cruelty. Swanson finished the paperwork and passed it to me. I signed it without reading, trusting him. Then he stood up. I'm going to call your son to sign the minor's release as well. Wait here. He left the office. Mason and I were alone. I hugged him, this time with more force. I felt his body relax against mine, as if for the first time in hours he could breathe peacefully. "Forgive me, my boy. Forgive me for not realizing sooner. It's not your fault, Grandma. It's Dad who didn't want to see." She worked as a waitress, a promoter, and eventually as a dealer in several casinos across the country. Letty placed a photo on the table. It was Vanessa, but younger, maybe 23 or 24. She was with an older man, about 60, at what looked like a wedding, her first marriage. She married at 24 to Robert Fisher, owner of a chain of hardware stores in Louisiana, a widower with 2 adult children. The marriage lasted 2 years. Robert died of a heart attack. Vanessa inherited property valued at over $1 million. The children tried to contest the will but couldn't. Everything was legal. The children, what happened to them? One lives in California. The other, the younger daughter, filed a complaint against Vanessa for making threats, but she dropped it a week later. When I located her by phone and asked about it, she hung up on me. I called back, and she said, and I quote, "That woman is dangerous. I don't want anything to do with her or her cursed money." A chill ran down my spine. Letty put down another photo, another wedding, Vanessa with another older man, second marriage, Frank Archer, a textile businessman in Pittsburgh, 58 years old, also a widower. They married when Vanessa was 27. The marriage lasted just a year and a half. Frank suffered a fall in his house that left him in a coma. He died 3 weeks later. Vanessa sold the house and the business. She pocketed approximately $1.5 million. Did anyone investigate the fall? Yes, but they found nothing suspicious. Vanessa said Frank had been drinking that night and slipped on the stairs. There were no witnesses. The security cameras in the house were broken. I looked up sharply. Broken. Just like at your son's house. It's a pattern, Captain. A clear pattern. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. There's more. Letty nodded and pulled out a third set of documents. Third marriage. John Vogel, a retired civil engineer in Scottsdale, Arizona. 62 years old, a widower. They married when Vanessa was 30. This marriage ended differently. John didn't die. But his son, Paul Vogel, who was 26, disappeared 6 months after the wedding. Literally disappeared. He left his house one night and never came back. He left a text message for his father, saying he needed time to think, that he was going abroad. He hasn't been heard from in 4 years. John tried to find him, but eventually gave up. He fell into a severe depression and signed documents giving Vanessa power of attorney over his finances. She put him in a nursing home and sold all his properties. Estimated profit, $2 million. I put my hands to my face. This was worse than I had imagined. That boy Paul, do you think? I don't know what happened to him, Captain, but the pattern is clear. Vanessa targets older, wealthy widowers with children. She marries them, and one way or another, the children end up out of the picture dead, disappeared, or intimidated. Then she takes the money. And now she's with my son. Adam fits the profile perfectly. A young widower with a teenage son, and a mother who owns a valuable property. She can't touch you directly while you're alive, but she can ensure your son inherits and then manipulate him into selling. That's why she wants to get rid of Mason, I said, understanding everything. Because Mason is an obstacle. He's the rightful heir if something happened to Adam, and he's smart enough to see her for who she is. Exactly. And that's why she's making him look like a delinquent. If she can get him sent to a juvenile facility or legally disowned by his father, her path is clear. Letty pulled out another document. There's more. Vanessa has an accomplice. His name is Gerald Owen Shaw, an attorney. He shows up in all 3 previous marriages. He handles the legal side wills, powers of attorney, property sales. He splits the profits with Vanessa, 50/50. Do you have proof of that? Suspicious wire transfers, always after each inheritance, large amounts divided among accounts in the Cayman Islands. It's not definitive proof for a judge, but it's enough to start a formal investigation. I heard the bathroom door open. Mason came out, his hair wet, wearing clean clothes I had lent him. When he saw Letty, he stopped. Good morning. Good morning, Mason. I'm Letty, a friend of your grandmother's. He nodded and approached timidly. He saw the documents on the table. Is that about Vanessa? I looked at Letty. She gave a slight nod. I decided Mason deserved to know the truth. Sit down, son. I told him everything. Every marriage, every suspicious death, every disappearance. I watched his face grow pale with each word. When I finished, his hands were trembling. So, she killed those people? We don't know for sure, Letty said, but the pattern is too consistent to be a coincidence. And I'm next, Mason whispered. She wants me to disappear like Paul. That's not going to happen, I said firmly, taking his hand, because now we know who she is, and we are going to stop her. How? Mason asked. My dad won't believe us. He thinks you just want to break them up. I don't need your father to believe me. I need proof. Proof that neither he nor any judge can ignore. Letty leaned back in her chair. Captain, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that Vanessa is smart, but not as smart as she thinks. She made a mistake attacking Mason that night. She got cocky. She thought her word and some fake bruises would be enough. But she left loose ends. Like what? The candlestick. Mason says she hid it. It has to be somewhere in that house, with Vanessa's fingerprints and probably Mason's blood on it. That's physical evidence. But we can't just go in and search for it without a warrant. I smiled faintly. No, but Mason can. Legally, that house is also his home. He has a right to be there and to get his things. Mason looked at me, his eyes wide. You want me to go back? Just for a couple of hours. With a pretext, you say you need your clothes, your school supplies, and while you're there you look for the candlestick. But you're not going alone. What do you mean? I took out my phone and searched for something on an app. Then I showed the screen to Letty. Spy cameras. The size of a button. They can be sewn into clothing. They transmit real-time video to a cell phone. Letty grinned. Captain, you haven't lost your touch. I never lost it. It was just dormant. We spent the rest of the morning planning every detail. Letty would get the spy cameras. I would call Adam and ask him to let Mason pick up his things. And while Mason was inside, we would be outside, recording every second. But there was a risk. If Vanessa suspected anything, she could act. She could hurt Mason again, or worse. Grandma, Mason said, reading my concern. I want to do it. I have to. Not just for me, but for Paul. For the other children. For everyone she hurt. I looked into his eyes. He was no longer the scared boy from 2 nights ago. There was something different in him. Determination. Courage. All right. But we follow my plan to the letter. No improvising. If you feel you're in danger, you get out immediately. Understood? Understood. That afternoon, I called Adam. He answered on the 3rd ring. What do you want, Mom? Mason needs his clothes and his things for school. He's going to go over tomorrow to pick them up. I hope that's not a problem. There was a long silence. Is he coming alone? Yes, it's his house too, isn't it? Or at least, that's what you used to say. Fine. But make it quick. Vanessa doesn't want to see him. Don't worry, it will be very quick. I hung up before he could reply. Letty arrived that night with the cameras. They were so small, they looked like normal buttons. We sewed them onto Mason's shirt, one on the chest and one on the shoulder. From my phone, we could see everything the cameras captured. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I said. Vanessa will be home because she doesn't work on Tuesdays. Adam will be at the office. It's the perfect time. Mason nodded. He seemed calm, but I saw his hands trembling slightly as he ate dinner. That night, before he went to sleep, I went into his room. He was lying down, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep? I'm scared, Grandma. But not of Vanessa. I'm scared of what I'll find. Scared of confirming that my dad is with a murderer. I sat on the edge of the bed and stroked his hair. Whatever we find tomorrow, we'll face it together. You are not alone, Mason. And you never will be as long as I'm alive. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, my boy. More than words can say. He closed his eyes and eventually fell asleep. I stayed there a while longer, watching him breathe peacefully. I thought about all the dangers he would face the next day, all the things that could go wrong. But I also thought about something else. Vanessa had underestimated this family. She had underestimated a brave boy who refused to be just another victim. And she had underestimated a grandmother who had hunted criminals her entire life. Tomorrow, the snake would show its fangs. But we already had the antidote. The next day, Mason entered that house with the cameras rolling. What we recorded that afternoon chilled us to the bone and gave us the weapon we needed to destroy Vanessa. It was 2:45 p.m. Mason stood in front of the mirror in my living room, checking his shirt. The buttons with the hidden cameras were invisible to the naked eye. I checked for the 10th time that the transmission was working correctly on my phone. "Audio clear, video clear," I said. "Are you ready, Mason?" He took a deep breath. Ready. Letty was outside in her car, half a block from Adam's house. We would be his backup. If anything went wrong, we would go in immediately. "Remember," I said, putting my hands on his shoulders. "You go in, greet her normally, go to your room, pack your clothes. In the meantime, you observe. If you see the candlestick or any other evidence, you record it. But don't touch it. We don't want her accusing you of stealing anything. Understood? And if she gets aggressive, I leave immediately." I gave him a tight hug. He smelled of soap and fear, but also of bravery. "Let's go," Letty said from the doorway. "It's time." We went down to Letty's car. I sat in the back seat with my phone in my hands, the screen showing what Mason's cameras saw. Letty drove in silence, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. We arrived in Oak Park. Adam's house was large, 2 stories, with a front garden and an electric gate. He had bought it with the life insurance money from his first wife, a house that should have been full of happy memories but was now a prison. Mason got out of the car. We watched him walk to the front door. On my phone, the image moved with every step he took. He rang the doorbell. The door opened, and there was Vanessa. She was wearing black sweatpants and a tight pink top. Her hair was up in a ponytail. Without makeup, she looked younger but also more calculating. Her eyes scanned Mason from head to toe, like a predator sizing up its prey. "You're here," she said flatly. "I thought you'd chicken out." "I came for my things. My dad said I could." "Your dad says a lot of things. Come in, but be quick. I don't have all day." Mason went inside. The camera captured everything. The elegantly decorated living room, the marble floor, the paintings on the walls, all immaculate, all perfect, a facade. "Go to your room. You have 30 minutes, Vanessa ordered, closing the door behind him. Mason went up the stairs, the camera recording every detail. He reached his room and opened the door. My heart broke when I saw what the cameras showed. The room was destroyed. Mason's clothes were thrown on the floor, his posters torn from the walls, his desk overturned, books scattered everywhere, his bed stripped of its sheets, as if a hurricane had passed through. "Oh my God," Letty whispered, watching the screen from the rearview mirror. I heard Mason's trembling voice through the audio. "What happened to my room?" Vanessa's voice shouted from downstairs. "You packed up your mess like the pig you are. That's your room." Mason began to pick up his clothes and put them in a backpack. His hands were shaking. The camera caught him stopping in front of a broken picture frame on the floor. It was a photo of him with his mother, taken a year before she died. The frame was shattered. The photo had a shoe print on it. I saw Mason pick it up carefully, wipe off the dust, and put it in his backpack. "Breathe, son," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't hear me. "Breathe." He finished packing his clothes. Then he opened his desk drawer looking for his notebooks. That's when I saw it. On my phone screen, behind a pile of torn notebooks, something was shining. "Stop," I said to the phone. "Focus on that." As if he had heard me, Mason moved the notebooks, and there it was. A silver candlestick, heavy, antique, with dark stains on the base. Blood. "He found it?" Letty said. "That's it." Vanessa's voice interrupted from the stairs. "Are you done yet? You've been up there for 15 minutes. "Almost," Mason replied, his voice surprisingly calm. Quickly, with trembling hands, he took out his personal phone and took several pictures of the candlestick. Then he left it exactly where it was and closed the drawer. "Well done," I murmured. Mason left his room with the backpack on his shoulder. He started down the stairs. Vanessa was waiting at the bottom, her arms crossed. "Is that all?" "Yes." "Perfect. Then you can leave and not come back. This is my house, too." Vanessa let out a cold laugh. "Your house? This house belongs to your father, and I am his wife. You are just an accident he's had to put up with all these years." "My mom was not an accident." Vanessa's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Your mom is dead, and your grandmother will be soon too. It's just a matter of time. Old ladies like her don't last long, and when she dies, your father will inherit that dump she lives in. We're going to sell it, we're going to leave, and you're going to a boarding school where you can learn not to be so insolent. Is that why you hit defenseless kids? Because it makes you feel powerful? Vanessa took a step toward him. The camera perfectly captured her face. Pure fury. I didn't touch you, you little liar. You attacked me, and if you ever repeat that lie, I'll make sure you rot in a juvenile hall. I know the truth, and so does my grandma. Your grandmother is nobody. She's a washed-up old woman who doesn't know when to quit. But she'll learn. They all learn eventually. At that moment, we heard another voice, a voice that made my world stop. What are you two talking about? Adam had just walked in the front door. He was wearing his office suit, his tie loosened. He looked tired, old, nothing like the son I remembered. Honey, Vanessa said, her tone immediately shifting to sweet and concerned. You're home early. Mason was just leaving. Adam looked at his son, then at Vanessa. Something in his expression told me he had heard more than she thought. What was that about a boarding school? I was just explaining to him that if he continues to misbehave, we'll have to take measures, Vanessa replied quickly. She said that when Grandma dies, they're going to sell her condo, Mason said, his voice firm despite his fear. She said it just like that. That's a lie, Vanessa exclaimed. Adam, honey, your son is making things up again to turn you against me. I'm not making anything up, and you know it. Adam ran his hands over his face. He looked like a man on the verge of a breakdown. Mason, leave, now. Dad, you need to listen to me. I said, get out. The shout echoed through the house. Mason took a pained step back. I clenched my phone so hard I thought I would break it. Fine, Mason said in a low voice. I'm leaving, but when you want to know the truth, you know where to find me. He left the house, the door closed behind him. On the screen, we could still see Adam and Vanessa in the living room. She approached him, putting her hands on his chest. Honey, you're stressed. That boy is making you sick. We should. I need to be alone, Adam interrupted, pushing her away. He went up the stairs without another word. Vanessa stood there, looking at her phone with a smile that chilled my blood. She dialed a number. Gerald, it's me. We need to speed things up. The brat is causing problems. Yes, I know. Just give me one more week, and everything will be ready. The old woman won't know what hit her. She hung up, and at that moment, I knew we didn't have much time. Mason got to the car and climbed into the back with me. His eyes were full of tears he refused to shed. I'm sorry, Grandma. I tried. Don't apologize, I said, hugging him. You did perfectly. We got what we needed. Letty started the car, and we drove away. On my phone, I reviewed the recordings. We had everything. The candlestick, Vanessa's threats, her confession about selling my condo, her call with Gerald. But more importantly, I had something that broke my heart, the confirmation that my son was lost. That night, after Mason fell asleep, I went out onto my condo's balcony. The city glowed under the streetlights. It was cold, or maybe it was just my heart that felt frozen. I thought about Adam as a child, how he would run to me whenever I came home from work, how he would hug me and say, Mom, I missed you all day. The nights I spent awake when he had a fever, the times I defended him when other kids made fun of him for not having a father. I gave everything for that boy. Everything. And for what? For a woman to come along and steal him from me in less than 5 years? For him to look at me as if I were his enemy? The tears I had held back for days finally came. I cried silently so Mason wouldn't hear me. I cried for the son I had lost, for the years I would never get back, for the words I would never hear from his mouth again. But I also cried with rage. Because Vanessa hadn't just taken my son from me. She had turned him into a stranger. She had poisoned him against me, against his own son, against everything that was once good in him. And that I could not forgive. I dried my tears, took a deep breath, and at that moment, I made a decision. I was going to get my son back. I didn't know how. I didn't know how long it would take. But I was going to snatch him from that woman's claws, even if it was the last thing I ever did, because I was Rebecca Stone, and mothers like me never give up, not even when the whole world is against us. Not even when our own children have forgotten us. We do not give up. But before I could get my son back, I had to destroy Vanessa, and for that, I needed more than just recordings. I needed a perfect trap. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No more tears, no more doubts. Just one objective: destroy Vanessa before she destroyed what little was left of my family. I made strong coffee and sat at the dining table with my old investigation notebook. Letty would arrive in an hour. Mason was still asleep. He needed the rest after yesterday. I started writing down everything we knew. Physical evidence: candlestick with Mason's blood. In Adam's house, can't touch it without a warrant. Testimonial evidence: recording of Vanessa, threatening, talking about selling my condo, mentioning Gerald. Background: 3 prior marriages, 2 suspicious deaths, 1 disappearance, millions of dollars inherited. Accomplice: Gerald Owen Shaw, attorney, handles the legal side of the scams. But something bothered me. All of this was circumstantial. A good lawyer could dismantle our case, claiming the recordings were taken out of context, that the prior marriages proved nothing, that we were just a resentful grandmother making up stories. I needed more. I needed Vanessa to incriminate herself so clearly that not even the best lawyer could save her. Letty arrived promptly at 8 a.m. She brought 2 extra coffees and looked like she hadn't slept well. "What's on your mind, Captain?" "I know that look. It's the same one you got when we were about to break a tough case." I smiled faintly. "We're going to set a trap for Vanessa. But for it to work, she needs to believe I'm vulnerable, that I'm defeated." "How?" "I'm going to do something that goes against every instinct I have. I'm going to give her exactly what she wants." Letty frowned. "I'm not following." I took an envelope from my bag. Inside were documents I had prepared the night before when I couldn't sleep. Documents for a voluntary transfer of my condo's deed to Adam's name, signed by me. Letty's eyes went wide. "Captain, you can't be serious." "They're not real." "Well, the documents are real, but they have a hidden clause in the fine print that automatically invalidates them if coercion, threat, or fraud is proven. A notary friend helped me prepare them last night. They look legitimate, but legally, they're worthless if there's any pressure involved." "And how are you going to get Vanessa to take the bait?" "I'm going to contact her. I'll tell her I'm tired of fighting, that I want peace, that I'm willing to sign my condo over to Adam if she leaves Mason alone. But with one condition. I want her and her lawyer to come to my home personally to close the deal. And while they're here, I record them. Everything. Every word, every threat, every confession they let slip. Because people like Vanessa can't help but gloat when they think they've won." Letty leaned back in her chair, processing the plan. "It's risky. If she figures out the trap, she could get violent. That's why you'll be here, hidden in my room. And I'll have hidden cameras all over the living room and dining area. Professional-grade audio and video. All legal, because it's my home, and I have the right to record what happens inside it. And if she just accepts the documents and leaves without saying anything incriminating? She won't. I know women like her. When they think they've won, they can't resist the temptation to rub it in your face. They'll want me to know they beat me, and in that moment they'll let their guard down." Mason came out of the room just then, hair disheveled and eyes puffy. He stopped when he saw us. "What's going on?" I explained the plan. I saw his face shift from fear to worry, and finally, to determination. "And what do? You'll stay at Letty's house that day. I don't want you here when they come. It's too dangerous." "But Grandma..." "It's non-negotiable, Mason. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on this." He didn't argue further. He knew that when I used that tone, there was no changing my mind. We spent the rest of the day preparing everything. Letty got 4 professional spy cameras. We installed them in strategic locations, one in the living room bookshelf, another in the dining room wall clock, a third on the kitchen shelf, and the last in my floor lamp. From the bedroom, Letty could see and record everything on her laptop. I also prepared my home to look vulnerable. I left fake hospital bills, prepared by Letty, on the dining table. I put pill bottles in the kitchen. I wanted Vanessa to think I was sick, weak, desperate. The next morning, I picked up my phone. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed Adam's number. He answered on the 4th ring. "What now, Mom?" "I need to speak with Vanessa. It's important." Silence. Then the sound of footsteps. Adam passed the phone to his wife, Rebecca. Vanessa's voice was cautious, almost amused. "What a surprise. We need to talk." about the condo, about Mason, about everything. We have nothing to talk about. Please, I let my voice sound tired, defeated. I'm tired of fighting. I just want my grandson to be safe and my son to be happy. If that means giving in, then that's what I'll do. There was a long silence. I could imagine Vanessa smiling on the other end. Giving in? In what sense exactly? The condo. I know Adam will inherit it eventually, but I've been sick lately. My heart isn't doing well. The doctors say it could be a matter of months, maybe a year. I don't want to die knowing I left a legal mess for my son. How thoughtful of you. The sarcasm in her voice was thick. I'm willing to sign papers deeding the property to Adam now, but on one condition. You leave Mason alone. You drop the charges. You let him live with me for whatever time I have left. Another silence. I could hear voices in the background. Vanessa was consulting with someone, probably Gerald. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow. 3 p.m. At my place. Bring your lawyer if you want. I want everything to be legal and final. Why the sudden change of heart, Rebecca? Because I'm tired, because I don't have the strength to fight anymore, and because, at the end of the day, my son made his choice, and he didn't choose me. Those last words hurt to say because they were true. Tomorrow at 3 then, Vanessa said. And I hope you're not playing games with me, old woman, because if you are, I promise you'll regret it. I'm not playing. I just want peace. She hung up. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding furiously. Letty put a hand on my shoulder. You did great, Captain. You sounded convincing. That's because part of it is true, I admitted. I am tired. And Adam did choose her over me. But we're not going to let her win. We're going to make sure she loses everything. The rest of the day was spent going over every detail of the plan. Where I would sit, where they would sit, what questions to ask to get them talking, how to subtly provoke them into feeling secure in themselves. That night, before sleeping, I went into Mason's room. He was lying down, staring at the ceiling. Nervous, Grandma? A little. But more than nervous, I'm angry. And that anger is what will give me strength tomorrow. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Trust me. He sat up in bed and hugged me. I always trust you, Grandma. You're the strongest person I know. And you're the reason I'm still fighting. The next day, Letty came early. We checked the cameras one last time. Everything worked perfectly. At 1 p.m., we took Mason to Letty's house. Her husband, a quiet, reliable man, stayed with him. Don't leave the house for any reason, I told Mason. And keep your phone on. Be careful, Grandma. Always. Letty and I returned to my apartment. She set herself up in my room with her laptop, headphones, and a professional recorder. I stayed in the living room, waiting. At 2:55 p.m., the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath. I stood up. I smoothed my gray blouse and dark skirt. I had chosen clothes that made me look older, more frail. I opened the door. There they were. Vanessa in a beige office dress and high heels. Beside her, a man in his 52nds, impeccable suit, briefcase in hand. Gerald Owen Shaw, no doubt. And behind them, with an uncomfortable expression, was Adam. Come in, I said in a soft voice. I was expecting you. Vanessa entered first, looking at my home with barely concealed disdain. Gerald followed, assessing everything with a lawyer's eyes. Adam came in last, not looking me in the eye. Please, sit down. I gestured to the sofa and the dining chairs. Vanessa sat in the main armchair as if she owned the place. Gerald next to her, Adam in a chair set apart, as if wanting to disappear. I sat across from them, and at that moment, with the cameras recording every second, the final game began. Thank you for coming, I said. I know this isn't easy for any of us. Vanessa smiled, that predatory smile I had seen so many times on criminals who thought they had won. Oh, Rebecca, I always knew you'd see reason eventually. And so it began. The trap was set. The poison was served. Now, all that was left was to see if the snake was arrogant enough to drink it. What Vanessa and her accomplice said that afternoon, believing they had won, sealed their fate. Every word was a confession. Every smile was more evidence of their guilt. Gerald Owen Shaw opened his briefcase and took out a folder of documents. He placed them on the coffee table with precise, calculated movements. He was a man of measured gestures, with slicked-back hair and gold-rimmed glasses that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. "Mrs. Stone," he began in a professional voice, "I understand you wish to transfer the property located at 247 North Clark Street, apartment 302, into the name of your son, Adam Rivers. Is that correct?" "That's right," I replied, keeping my voice tired, resigned. "Excellent. I've prepared the necessary documents. I just need you to review them. And sign here, here, and here." He pointed to several lines with his luxury pen. I took the papers. I pretended to read them carefully. In reality, I was watching everyone's reactions. Adam was staring at the floor, uncomfortable. Vanessa couldn't hide the triumphant glint in her eyes. Gerald maintained his professional mask, but I saw him exchange a quick glance with Vanessa. "These documents," I said slowly, "indicate that I am ceding the property voluntarily without receiving anything in return." "That is correct," Gerald replied. "It's a gift during your lifetime to your direct heir. Perfectly legal." "And what about Mason?" I asked. "You'll drop the charges, right?" That was the deal. Vanessa leaned forward, crossing her legs. "My dear Rebecca, let's be realistic. Your grandson attacked an adult woman. That's a serious crime. I can't just forget about it. But you said—" "I said nothing," she interrupted with a cold smile. "You said you wanted to cede the condo. I simply agreed to come and witness this act of maternal generosity." The venom in her words was palpable. I looked at Adam. "Do you think so too? Do you think your son deserves to be in a juvenile facility?" Adam finally looked up. There was something in his eyes. Shame, guilt. But he said nothing, simply looking back down at the floor. "Adam has learned to trust me," Vanessa said, placing her hand on my son's arm in a possessive gesture. "He knows I only want what's best for our family. And frankly, Mason has been a problem since I came into your lives." "A problem?" I repeated. "He's a child." "He's a manipulator," Vanessa spat, "just like you, trying to tear us apart with lies and drama." Gerald cleared his throat uncomfortably, as if Vanessa was saying more than she should, but she didn't stop. "Do you know how many times that brat has tried to convince Adam that I'm a bad person? How many lies he's made up about me?" "Maybe they weren't lies," I said softly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Nothing, just that a child usually tells the truth when they're scared." Vanessa let out a dry laugh. "Oh, Rebecca, always so dramatic, just like your grandson. I guess it runs in the family. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Because you're going to sign those papers. You'll stay in this apartment until nature takes its course. And Mason will learn his lesson in a place where they teach real discipline." "Vanessa," Gerald said in a low voice, as if warning her. But she was on a roll. I could see the power had gone to her head. "What?" she snapped at Gerald. "It's the truth. This old woman is finished. Look at her. Sick, alone, defeated. She should have accepted this from the beginning. It would have saved me so much work." "Work?" I asked, playing naive. "Yes, work," Vanessa replied, leaning back in the armchair like a queen on her throne. "Do you have any idea how much effort it took to make Adam forget you? Every birthday he forgot, every call he didn't hear, every visit he couldn't make, all planned, all executed perfectly." Adam looked at her, shocked. "What did you say?" "Oh, please, honey," Vanessa shot him a look. "Don't act so surprised. You knew perfectly well that I managed your schedule, that I decided who you spent time with and who you didn't. I thought—" Adam hesitated. "I thought you were just helping me get better organized." "Oh, Adam, so naive," Vanessa laughed. "I was pushing this woman away because she was a nuisance. And it worked, didn't it? Now you can't even stand her." I saw something break in my son's eyes, as if a veil had been lifted. Gerald quickly intervened, standing up. "Vanessa, I think we should focus on the documents." "Sit down, Gerald," Vanessa ordered without looking at him. "I'm talking." He obeyed, but I saw the nervousness on his face. He knew Vanessa was losing control. "You know what the best part of all this is, Rebecca?" Vanessa continued. "That when you finally die, and believe me, with that heart of yours, it won't be long we're going to sell this dump for $500,000. I already have a buyer, an investor who wants to remodel the whole building." "$500,000, I repeated. "Uh-huh. And with that money, plus what I've already saved from my previous investments. Adam and I are moving to Miami. We're going to open a boutique hotel. I've already got the land picked out. And Mason? I asked. Mason is going to a military academy in Virginia. It's all arranged. As soon as he turns 18, it's out of our hands. He won't be our problem anymore. Vanessa, stop, Adam said, standing up. What are you talking about? We never discussed any of that. Because you don't have to discuss anything, honey, Vanessa replied condescendingly. I take care of everything, as always. Just like I took care of pushing this old woman away, of controlling your son, of planning our future. You took care of pushing my mother away? Adam's voice trembled. Someone had to. She was never going to let you go. Mothers like her are toxic. They cling to their sons like leeches. I bit my lip to keep from screaming. I needed her to keep talking. And the candlestick, I said softly. You took care of that too? Vanessa looked at me and smiled. Ah, that was clever, wasn't it? The brat came home late. I was sick of his judgmental looks, his passive-aggressive comments. So when he came in, I gave him what he deserved. A good hit with that silver candlestick my dear dead mother-in-law gave me. Ironic, isn't it? Adam was pale. You hit him first? Of course. But then I hit myself against the wall. A few strategic bruises, some well-acted tears, and you believed me, like always. Vanessa, Gerald tried to interrupt again. Shut up, Gerald, she exploded. This is over. The old woman is going to sign. We're going to get the condo, and in a few months we'll be in Miami counting cash, just like we planned. Just like you planned with Robert, I said in a low voice. And with Frank. And with John. Vanessa's face froze. Gerald jumped to his feet. That's enough. We're leaving. Sit down, Gerald, I said. And this time my voice wasn't tired or defeated. It sounded like the captain I was for 35 years, because this is just getting started. I stood up and walked to my bedroom door. I opened it. Letty came out, laptop in her hands. Good afternoon, Letty said. Private Investigator Letty Dawson. Everything you've just said has been recorded in high-definition audio and video. The color drained from Vanessa's face. That's illegal. Not at all, I replied. We're in my home. I have the right to record what happens on my property. And you have just confessed to multiple crimes. Coercion, fraud, assault on a minor, conspiracy. Gerald was already at the door, trying to flee, but Letty blocked his path. I wouldn't move if I were you, counselor. There are 2 CPD officers waiting outside, old friends of Captain Stone. It was true. I had called Swanson that morning. He had agreed to be nearby in case things got violent. Vanessa stood up, furious. This won't hold up in any court. You entrapped us. I set a trap that you walked into with all the enthusiasm in the world, I replied coldly. Because you're arrogant. Because you thought you were invincible. Because you thought an old woman like me couldn't stand up to you. I took out my phone and dialed a number. I put it on speaker. Captain Swanson, you can come up now. We heard footsteps on the stairs. Moments later, 2 officers entered with Swanson in the lead. Captain Stone, he greeted me. You got what we needed? Everything, Letty replied, showing him the laptop. Full confession, threats, admission of assault on a minor, conspiracy to commit fraud. Swanson looked at Vanessa and Gerald. Vanessa Jenkins, Gerald Owen Shaw. You are under arrest for the crimes of... This is a setup, Vanessa screamed. Adam, say something. Defend me. We all turned to look at my son. He was sitting in the chair, his face in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. It was all a lie. Everything you told me. About my mother. About Mason. About everything. Vanessa looked at him, and for the first time, I saw something like panic in her eyes. Honey, no. I love you. Everything I did was for us. You used me, Adam said, looking up, tears in his eyes. You pushed my mother away. You hit my son. All for money. It wasn't just for money, Vanessa insisted. I wanted a better life for us. Liar, Adam exploded, standing up. You never loved me. You just wanted my inheritance, just like you did with the others. The officers handcuffed Vanessa. She kept screaming, trying to get to Adam. Adam, please, don't let them take me. I'm your wife. but my son just turned away. Gerald was handcuffed in silence, with the resignation of someone who knows the game is over. As they were led out of the apartment, Swanson approached me. "Captain, I'll need you to come down tomorrow to give a formal statement. This is going to be a long one, but with this evidence, there's no way they're walking free. I'll be there." When they were gone, only Letty, Adam, and I remained. The silence was deafening. Adam looked at me, and for the first time in 5 years, he really saw me. "Mom," his voice broke. "I'm sorry. I am so sorry." I wanted to run to him, to hug him, but something stopped me. Years of pain, years of neglect, years of tears. "No, Adam," I said softly. "Not yet. And I'm sorry doesn't fix 5 years of forgetting me. It doesn't fix you believing a stranger over your own mother. It doesn't fix you letting that woman hit your son." He nodded, tears rolling down his face. "I know, you're right. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "It's not about deserving it," I replied. "It's about earning it. And that's going to take time. A lot of time." I stepped toward him, placed my hand on his cheek. "But you are my son. And even though you forgot me, I never forgot you. So we're going to heal this. Together. Slowly. But only if you're willing to do the real work. Anything, Mom, anything." Letty discreetly gathered her things and said her goodbyes. When she left, Adam and I were left in my living room, the same place where years ago I played with him as a child. The same place where we celebrated his birthdays. The same place he had stopped visiting. "Where's Mason?" he asked. "Safe. With Letty and her husband. I need to see him. I need to—" His voice broke. "I need to ask him to forgive me." "You will. But first, you need to understand something, Adam. Mason suffered for months, and you didn't see it. Not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to. I know. And I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Good. Because that guilt will remind you never to fail like that again." We stood in silence for a moment. Then I hugged him, and he cried in my arms like he did when he was a boy. Because at the end of the day, he was still my son. And even though he had broken my heart, I was his mother. And mothers never stop loving, even when it hurts. Justice was just beginning. But the hardest part wouldn't be seeing Vanessa pay for her crimes. It would be rebuilding a family she had destroyed, piece by piece. 6 months after the sentencing, I woke up to the sun streaming through my bedroom window. It was a Saturday in May, and the city smelled of recent rain and fresh blooms. I lay in bed for a moment, listening to the sounds of my apartment. From the kitchen came the clatter of dishes. Someone was making breakfast. I heard laughter, a deep voice, and a younger one, trading jokes. I smiled. I got up slowly, putting on my worn robe and slippers. When I reached the kitchen, I found a scene that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Adam was at the stove, making scrambled eggs. Mason was setting the table, humming along to a song on the radio. They had made coffee, picked up pastries, and cut up fresh fruit. "Good morning, Grandma," Mason said when he saw me. "Happy birthday." I had completely forgotten. 69 years, a lifetime. "Oh, you boys, you didn't have to do this." "Of course we did," Adam said, turning to me with a smile. "It's your special day." We ate breakfast together at the small dining table. Mason told me about his final math exam, which he had passed with an A. Adam talked about his new job at a smaller construction firm where the atmosphere was better and the hours more reasonable. "I don't want to miss any more time," Adam said, looking me in the eyes. "The money can wait. You can't." After breakfast, Mason brought out a package wrapped in green paper. "This is from both of us." I opened it carefully. Inside was a photo album. But these weren't old photos. They were new, from the last 6 months. Mason playing soccer, with Adam watching from the sidelines. The three of us in Millennium Park, eating ice cream. A photo of Adam and me, arm in arm, in front of the bean. Mason hugging me after his high school graduation. A photo of the three of us planting a tree in the community garden near my condo. A cherry tree. Tears filled my eyes as I turned the pages. "Do you like it?" Mason asked. "It's perfect, my boy. Perfect." On the last page was a photo of the three of us sitting on my couch, smiling at the camera. Underneath, in Adam's handwriting, it said, Family isn't just the blood you share. It's the love you choose to give every day. Thank you, Mom, for never giving up on us. We love you." I couldn't hold back the sob. Adam hugged me from one side, Mason from the other. And in that moment, in that small kitchen in a modest apartment in Chicago, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. Later that day, we went for a walk in Lincoln Park. Adam and I walked slowly, enjoying the sun and the breeze. "Mom," Adam asked suddenly, "will you ever tell me about your work on the force? I grew up seeing you as a captain, but you never talked about it at home." "I never wanted to bring that darkness into our home," I replied. "I saw very hard things, very bad people, and when I came home I just wanted to be your mom, not Captain Stone. But that part of you is important too. It's part of what makes you, you." We sat on a bench under a century-old oak tree. "That case with Vanessa," Adam said. "You were so relentless because you know how to investigate, how not to give up." "Yes, but also because it was my family, and I will always fight for my family." That evening, back at my apartment, after a dinner of pot roast and cornbread, Adam told me he had started dating someone. Her name was Elena, an architect with a 1-2-year-old daughter. "She's kind, genuine," he said. "And most importantly, when I told her about what happened with Vanessa, about my mistakes, she didn't run, she listened. And she said everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to do the work." My first instinct was to tense up, but I took a deep breath. "Son, you deserve to be happy. You deserve love. Just take your time, get to know her well, and when you're sure, when you know it's real, then we'll meet her." "Thank you, Mom. And I promise," he said, taking my hand, "I will never again let anyone separate me from you or Mason." Later that night, I stood on the balcony. The city glowed beneath the nightlights. I thought about the path we had traveled, the pain, the tears, the fights, the years lost. But I also thought about what we had gained. The shared dinners, the laughter, the hugs, the second chances. Mason came out, a blanket draped over his shoulders. "Can't sleep, Grandma?" "Just thinking." "About what?" "That it was worth it. Every tear, every fight, every difficult moment. It was worth it to get to this moment." Mason came over and hugged me. "Grandma, you know what I'm going to study in college?" "What, my boy?" "Law. I want to be a lawyer. But not like Gerald. I want to defend families like ours, kids that nobody believes, people who need someone to fight for them." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Your mother would be so proud of you." "And you make me proud, Grandma," he said, "because you taught me that giving up is never an option." We stood there, wrapped in a hug under the stars, on that small balcony of a modest apartment in the city of Chicago, and in that moment I understood something profound. Wealth is not measured in property or bank accounts. It's measured in shared moments, in hands held, in stories told from one generation to the next. Vanessa had spent her life accumulating money that never brought her happiness, rotting away in a cell, with no one who truly loved her. I, on the other hand, had a grandson who wanted to be like me, a son who had come home, a family imperfect but real, and that was all the treasure I would ever need.